Hey there, Packer Nation guys and dolls. How are you doing out there? It is a big Monday morning. I hope you are doing well. As you get on, it's time for Packer Nation Roll Call. Of course, let me know who you are, where you're at, and we'll give you a shout out as we begin. And while you're doing that and getting on, there's a couple things I want to talk about. Of course, you might have noticed I titled this post 3 games that could be won by a field goal, so we'll be thinking about that, and I will be talking about that. Mason Crosby with 2 54-yard field goals in the preseason game against the Browns, and I feel like there's a time this season where it may come down to a field goal, and Mason Crosby may have to step up to the plate. So we'll talk about that. Jeff, how you doing, man? Good to see you. I hope you're having a great morning, dude. Tim is here. Steve Lindsay, sorry, I almost said Lindsley. You know why. Elias is here. Go Pack from Kennewick, Washington. Lindsay's from Colorado as well. What's up, Steve? Chrissy is here. Go Pack Go. She says, oh, absolutely. Why am I stretching? I guess maybe it's because it's Monday, right? I hope you guys are doing great and ready for a big week. And remember, if you can make it through today, it's 3 days till game time again. So, hey, Thursday night game, that's a good deal. My friend Andy is here. Crosby is money. Yes, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I think this year he may have to prove it. I think he will, but we'll talk about it. Jared Dixon is back from Australia. It's going well, mate. I hope you are well. Christopher is here. Chrissy, Preston, Robert, Sean, and James. Yeah, well, let me know what you think. When I asked the question, which games that the Packers play in the 2016 season do you think may come down to a Mason Crosby field goal? I feel like there's one that everybody is going to respond to right away, and it's going to be forefront on your mind. So let me know what you think, and I'm going to pause for just a minute, do a few more shout-outs, but which game do you think it might come down to a field goal? Because I got a hunch we might be thinking about the same one as our top game. So while we're doing that, Mortel looked good, says Sean, and that's absolutely true. That punting duel is looking very interesting. He has a very point-down punt, which I've noticed, and I'm interested to see how that affects his punting. Of course, for Mortel, we want to see him be able to stack games together and have that kind of performance. This was sort of a one-off thing right now, but showed a lot of potential. Leela is here. Elias is here. Heather is back from Joplin, Missouri, and Wynn Davis again from Minnesota. Good to see you. Teddy is here from Placerville, California. Chrissy, we've got one for the Vikings game. Michael says the Vikings game. Hey, Alec Martinez says hello to Packer Nation. So hello from Alec to everybody out there. The Minnesota Vikings game, week 2. The Minnesota Vikings open US Bank Stadium. It's their home opener. Packers have to travel for a second week in a row and play the division, the NFC North champions. This is game number 1 for me. I think this is a game that a lot of Packer people in Packer Nation have circled on their calendar. And it's one of those games where you look at it on paper, we expect Packers offense to be back in full stride. Eddie Lacy looks good. You know, we've got Jared Cook. Aaron Rodgers is light, and he seems ready to go. We're hoping and planning to have Jordy Nelson back by that point. So this is going to be a serious duel, and this is one of those games. A lot of times people talk about, the season being, they're only interested in the season come December. Well, don't think that way, because this game, this second week game against the Vikings, could be huge in terms of what plays down the road, because remember, we have a 3-game off at the end of the season, NFC division rival games. That's going to be extremely important to close the season, and how we play early on could affect whether we're playing at Lambeau or not come postseason play time. So that's very important, and I do think that week 2 matchup against the Vikings may be one where it comes down to Aaron Rodgers. The defense finally makes a stand, or maybe gets a pickoff in the red zone, and the Packers have a chance to march the field. And at the end of the game, with just 8 seconds on the board, Mason Crosby has to walk out onto the field. Maybe it's a long one, maybe it's a 50-plus. And kick a game-winning field goal or a game-losing field goal at that point. And if you'll remember last year, the game against Detroit that we could have won, where Mason just plain missed it. So there is the possibility that things can go wrong. We're very positive and very high, like Andy says, that Mason is money right now. And last year, Mason made a point to make up for that miss. Because I think against the Vikings, he had 540 plus. I mean, he set a record against the Vikings. So Mason Crosby is one of those guys. He hasn't been called upon often to win a game with a sort of walk-off field goal. But I think that Minnesota Vikings game may be one to do it. Now, that being said, my second game is actually the first game of the season. Week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Packers have to travel. This is the first game of the season. So there's still probably going to be some dialing in to do. Again, we weren't able to even play our first preseason game. So there is some catching up that the Packers, and you can hear it between the lines with the coaching staff, that they're still kind of getting back on course in terms of the schedule, getting the installs taken care of, figuring out who is going to go where when all is said and done. And I think it was Joe Witt Jr. that talked about they're going to be going straight up to the Jacksonville game to be doing evaluations and getting those players in their final positions as 1s, 2s, 3s, etc. So that Jacksonville game, I think, is one that we can't overlook. It may be one where the offense is still dialing in. We don't have a timeline on Jordy Nelson. We don't have a timeline on Jeff Janis right now. Ty Montgomery coming back from injury. I think Abbrederis looks fantastic, but you never know about that very first game. And then add to that, we've got to travel to Florida, which has always been kind of a bugaboo for the Green Bay Packers. We've tended to have issues with the heat. We've seemed to just not be able to get in a rhythm when we play those games in Florida. And this is sort of a historical thing. The same thing happened when Brett Favre was the Green Bay Packers quarterback. So apparently there's something about Florida that just doesn't sit well with folks from Green Bay. And maybe it's the opposite of the fact that, when folks from Florida come to Green Bay in December, it's not too comfortable for them either, and there's some adjustment that needs to take place. So that's my number 2 game. It's one not to be overlooked, that Jacksonville game, that's an up-and-coming team that's focused on their defense, and it will be interesting to see. With that said, my third one, and I see somebody said something about can't hear anything, so I'm going to make sure, hopefully, I think everything's good. Can you hear me out there? If you can, let me know so I know what's going on, because I'm all plugged in and ready to go, so hopefully everything is fine. This kind of things happen, technical difficulties, I guess. So I apologize if you can't hear. I'm really sorry. And if you can let me know what's going on, I will try to fix it, although I'm looking at what I'm seeing, and everything seems to be set up right. Hey, Tony is here. David is back. David said it's working fine. Okay, so we'll just go on from there. My third game, and by the way, if you have any other games that you think might come down to a Mason Crosby field goal, go ahead and throw them up right now. My third one, I'm a little bit... Okay, the reason I'm going to mention my third game, in part, has to do with the fact that I'm going to be at this game. December 11th, the Packers versus Seattle Seahawks. This is at Lambeau. But the Seattle Seahawks have been, again, one of those teams that sort of had the Packers' number. Now, last year, we really fairly well took care of them. And I think that I really do, when I look at the Seattle Seahawks, I feel like they might be sort of on a downward trend. At the same time, they're getting Jimmy Graham back. Probably will have a little better idea of how to incorporate him into their offense from now on. Russell Wilson, I think, did a fantastic job, and their offense was hot at the end of the season last year, and I think they are going to look to continue those good things into the 2016 season. So I think the Seattle Seahawks game is another one, and Seth agrees with me. Tyson, okay, yeah, I mean, this is one. Obviously, Jared is mentioning no Lynch, and I do think that has something to do with it. However, I think that Russell Wilson, he's a Wisconsin guy. He's not going to be jaded about playing in Wisconsin in December. They have seemed to have our number. You look at the NFC title game, the way that thing fell apart. This is a game where I feel like the Packers should find a way to dominate that game. And if not dominate, be solidly ahead for much of the game and go ahead and win out. However, there's always something in the back of my mind that says something crazy is going to happen, or we're not going to be able to defend against the run for some reason for the first time when we play the Seahawks without Marshawn Lynch. And something crazy is going to happen, and we're going to struggle in this game. Now, I hope that isn't the case, of course, but that is my third game that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. And when I travel up to that game, we'll be talking about that. And of course, by then, we'll have a much better idea of how the Packers offense is clicking, what our defense is able to do. So that's a good thing, but it's going to be interesting. And Mason Crosby is in the back pocket. He's in the back of my mind as one who may have truly something to say, not just about one game, but about our playoff position. If we had beat Detroit with that field goal, our playoff position would have changed in that scenario. And yes, and Wendorf is, David is, Wendorf. Because you said Rawls, you called him by his last name. I guess that's why I called you by your last name. But David is mentioning that Rawls is pretty good too. He's nobody to sleep on. So yeah, we've got to watch out for those Seattle Seahawks. There's no doubt in my mind that they're going to come in ready to play. And when you get to that early December game, the playoff picture starts to take shape. And remember, these Seahawks, they're the kind of team that seems to they play on, it's like they're on cruise control for the first 2 quarters of the season. And from time to time, they drop some games that they shouldn't. They're playing in the NFC West, which is a difficult division to play in. But then when the going gets tough, when it looks like their position is at stake, these guys know how to turn it on. These guys are a team that knows how to win championships. And yeah, so we cannot sleep on that game. So, all right, a couple other things I wanted to talk about. One thing, how are you guys feeling about the way that Nick Perry and Datone Jones have been playing? Is this not pretty cool? I mean, heart me if you're happy about that. And the fact that we've got Julius Peppers waiting in the wing, and we've got Clay Matthews waiting in the wing, and we've got a defensive coordinator who is talking about how Clay Matthews it's hard to get him off the field. But we've had a guy that's gone out there and has been able to produce. Datone Jones is looking good as an outside rusher. He can hold the point. He's big enough, but he's lost enough weight to really be able to take the edge, pursue from the backside. He has looked good. Nick Perry, I think, is a guy that can really make a difference. He showed it at the end of last year. I think that bodes really well. Again, Clay Matthews is the one that we don't really feel like we have to manage his reps just yet, but I feel like it actually, if we can take some reps off of him and keep him fresh for a playoff run, that could still be a good thing. So I am very happy about how these two guys who go in, they know they've got to prove it. And it seems like they're having a good camp, and they had a very good game against the Cleveland Browns. So I'm really excited about the way this defense is coming together. That and the fact that, but part of it is really confusing. Like, not really confusing, but it isn't as easy as I kind of was hoping it was going to be. And that's a different position altogether, but it's not the outside linebacker position, but that inside linebacker position. How about Joe Thomas? The way he nailed, with a major stick. We've got a couple guys inside that got to play extra reps. Martinez played, I think, 11 reps, played the first quarter. He looked serviceable. He looked to me like he was still thinking, which is completely to be understood. But he made a nice big play. Oops, I just knocked my coffee over. I didn't knock it over, but that inside linebacker position now looks like it has a couple new players in the mix. It's crazy to see how that's panning out, but that competition is always going to be good for the interior of our defense. So some really good things, I think, happening on defense. And then a couple things to kind of close out our talk about the Cleveland Browns game, and that is this. I was looking over some of these stats. You guys have probably seen these, and I just want to go over a few of these. Okay. Total plays. Browns 44, Packers 80. We almost doubled it. Total yards. Browns 172, Packers 320. We almost doubled it. Yards per play. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Passing yards. Browns 95, Packers 169, almost 170. We're close to doubling it there. And then go down and look at time of possession. They had 20 minutes, just a little over 20 minutes. We had just a shade under 40 minutes time of possession. Packers were doubling up. And then you add to that defensively, the Browns came off and got a safety on us. But we came back, we ended up with 2 safeties in that game. Who would have predicted 3 safeties in this game? But the Packers, again, doubling up statistically the Cleveland Browns. And with that, I want to look forward to the Raiders game to ask the question. Of course, we are not expecting that statistically we can continue to double up a team like the Raiders, who is a very up-and-coming team. They are a playoff caliber contending team. They did lose Charles Woodson to retirement, but with guys like Amari Cooper-Carr doing a fantastic job, they're a team that can make plays down the field. So we're not expecting to get the same kind of result. But one thing I will be looking for is, can the Packers continue to win out in those? Can the Packers continue to win out in those categories? Maybe they don't double it, but can we continue to win out time of possession, turnovers, things like this? Can we continue to beat teams like the Raiders in terms of our rush yardage? It will show a lot for us moving forward. And I think this Raiders game, again, 3rd preseason game is when our starters are going to get in a lot. But if we can do well against a quality team like the Raiders, and we, again, don't have as many of our starters probably playing, maybe a series, maybe 2, I think it bodes well for us going into our 3rd preseason game. So I'll be keeping my eye on that. One comment, I watched the preseason game again, and I'm really concerned. I'm not concerned, I guess, but I feel like James Starks, I feel like Crockett and Burke might be challenging James Starks for the 3rd running back position at this point. Starks, I don't think at all that it was his fault, but Starks was the one taking the ball that got the safety. I didn't think Starks, I thought he looked decisive, but he was not able to execute. And I haven't been able to look at the blocking schemes, how it got blocked up. But then you look at the way that Crockett came on strong. Burke had a better game possibly. I feel like it's going to be interesting to see if someone can actually challenge James Starks for the 2nd running back spot. It will be interesting to see. And with as much preseason action as we still have to follow, there is the opportunity for one of these potential 3rd string running backs to make a run at it. Again, it's a door that's wide open. It depends on, and it's going to depend a lot on the circumstances, how many reps each player gets, but somebody really could. A guy like Crockett could take advantage. One of these potential 3rds could make a play and really show the coaches something on tape that gives them a shot. I think from watching Starks, I was very happy that we signed Starks back. But in watching him in that initial preseason game, I think there's an opportunity for a couple other guys on our team that we know about that could step up. So that being said, I think that's about all I wanted to cover this morning. I'm looking at Mike Pennell for this upcoming game against the Raiders. Coach Capers, coordinator Capers, had mentioned that he is going to get a lot of reps because, of course, they're going to be missing him for the first 4 games. I think long-term, this preseason is going to be big for Mike Pennell, and I think he is going to be actually going to be a big-time factor when Kenny Clark, I think, is going to get thrown in the mix those early games. But then later on, I think he's going to have more of a chance to just learn, I think, as Pennell comes in and gets more reps. I really think there's a good chance for our defense to truly develop into something special. One of the places I think we need to improve, especially with the game coming up against the Raiders, is our defensive backfield. We are going to have to do a better job. We had a shot play. It was 1st or 2nd play from scrimmage, big-time shot play. The Raiders and Amari Cooper are going to test us, and we're going to have to see if this defensive backfield is up to the test. Of course, we had accolades after accolades for a guy like Micah Hyde. I think it was Joe Witt that said he is one of our best 11 players right now. He's so versatile, and his interception was fantastic in the red zone, which literally took points off the board. When you have a team that is pretty much guaranteed 3 points and looking for 6, and you take the ball away, it becomes very important. Dom Capers said this week, I preach this all the time. And you have seen this Packers defense. One thing that we are very good at is red zone takeaways, and Micah Hyde has been a big part of that. So great to see him out there making an impact. And a big game coming up this week against the Raiders. I'll probably be switching gears tomorrow to talk more about that matchup. It's going to be interesting. And it's going to be, to me, much more interesting than the game against the Browns. Of course, the game against the Browns was just fantastic because we finally got to see the Packers play. But there is so much more to come. And pretty soon, we will have some more Packer action to talk about. So I'm going to get on and be talking about some early strategies for our NFC North rivals. Maybe close up some more stuff on the Browns. I'll let you guys go for this Monday morning. As we go, if there are any more shout-outs you guys want me to give, you haven't gotten your name shouted out, throw it up on the board, and I will give you a shout-out. Have a good day. We'll talk to you later.